The night my parents were buried, my brother stood in the doorway of our childhood home and told me I had until morning to leave, because, according to him, none of it was mine anymore. The house smelled like old wood and cold coffee. Every sound echoed too loudly. My shoes on the hardwood, the hum of the refrigerator, the ticking clock that had survived every argument, every birthday, every quiet Sunday morning my parents ever lived through. I stood in the living room, still wearing black, staring at the family photos my mother never took down. My father's laugh was frozen behind glass. My mother's hand rested on his shoulder like it still belonged there. I kept waiting for one of them to walk in and tell us to stop fighting. They always did. But this time, no one came. My brother, Mark, leaned against the doorframe with his arms crossed. He hadn't cried at the funeral, not once. He'd shaken hands, accepted sympathy, and checked his phone like it was any other Tuesday. "You should start packing," he said, calm and flat. "I'm selling the house." I laughed at first, not because it was funny, but because it was impossible. This was the house we grew up in, the house my parents paid off after 32 years, the house Mom promised would always be a place I could come back to if life went wrong. "You can't just sell it," I said. "We haven't even—" "I can," Mark interrupted, "and I will." That was when I felt it, the shift, like the ground moved half an inch and never went back. I was the younger one, the emotional one. Mark liked to remind everyone of that. He was the executor, he said, the responsible one, the one Dad trusted with paperwork and numbers. "You've got a job. You'll be fine. I need the money." "For what?" I asked. He shrugged. "That's not your concern." I slept on the couch that night, didn't unpack my bag, didn't take off my shoes. Every memory felt fragile, like touching it would break something forever. By morning, my brother had changed the locks. I stood on the porch with my suitcase, watching a man I shared a childhood with pretend I was a stranger. Neighbors peeked through curtains. Someone walked their dog a little slower than usual. Mark handed me an envelope. "You can stay with a friend," he said. "The will reading is next week. After that, it's done." I wanted to scream. I wanted to beg. But grief does strange things. It turns your voice off when you need it most. So I left. I slept on a borrowed mattress in a borrowed room, replaying my parents' last weeks. The hospital lights, the way Mom squeezed my hand like she knew something I didn't. The way Dad said, "Take care of each other," and looked straight at Mark when he said it. The will reading felt like a formality, a stamp on the worst month of my life. But something didn't sit right. My parents were careful people, thoughtful, fair, and as I stared at the envelope Mark gave me, unopened, I wondered why he looked so confident, too confident. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments about which country you're watching this video from. Enjoy the story. Because whatever my brother thought he knew about that will, I was starting to believe he had it very, very wrong. The lawyer's office was too quiet, not peaceful, quiet in the way places get when secrets are about to surface. Mark arrived early, he always did. He sat straight-backed in the chair beside the conference table, tapping his phone, already acting like a man waiting for paperwork to confirm what he believed was inevitable. He didn't look at me when I walked in. He didn't have to. He'd already decided how this would end. I took the seat across from him. My hands were folded, but they wouldn't stop shaking. I told myself it was grief, or cold, or nerves. I didn't yet realize it was instinct. The lawyer, Mr. Harris, entered with a thick folder under his arm. He was older than I expected, with tired eyes and a careful way of speaking, like every word carried weight. "Thank you for coming," he said. "I know this is a difficult time." Mark nodded once. I didn't. Mr. Harris opened the folder. Papers rustled. The sound filled the room, loud and final. "Your parents updated their wills 6 months ago," he began. Mark's tapping stopped. 6 months. That was around the time Mom had called me late one night, asking strange questions, whether I was happy, whether I felt safe, whether I trusted people to tell me the truth. At the time, I thought she was just tired. Mr. Harris continued, "As executor, Mark, you've already reviewed portions of this document." Mark smiled, just slightly. "Yes, but," the lawyer added, looking up, "there are sections that were sealed until today." Mark's smile didn't disappear, but something behind it did. I felt my heart start to race. Mr. Harris read aloud the usual things first. Bank accounts, personal belongings, donations. It all sounded distant, like it was happening in another room. Then he paused. "The house," he said. Mark leaned forward. "The property at 214 Willow Ridge is not to be sold immediately." Mark frowned. "That wasn't what we discussed." Mr. Harris raised a hand. "Please let me finish." The air felt heavier, harder to breathe. "The house is to remain in joint ownership for a period of 1 year," the lawyer read, "during which time no changes to residency or ownership may be made without consent from both beneficiaries." I looked up sharply. "Both?" Mr. Harris nodded. "Yes, both." Mark turned toward me for the first time. His eyes were sharp, searching. "What does that mean?" he asked. "It means," Mr. Harris said calmly, "that neither of you have the authority to remove the other from the home." Silence slammed into the room. "You changed the locks," I said quietly. Mark didn't answer. Mr. Harris flipped another page. "Furthermore, during that 1-year period, the house was to be occupied by the beneficiary who was most in need of stability." The phrase felt deliberate, chosen. "And that beneficiary," Mr. Harris said, looking directly at me, "is you." My ears rang. "What?" Mark stood up so fast his chair scraped loudly across the floor. "That's not possible," he snapped. "They wouldn't." "They did. Your parents left detailed notes, medical notes, personal letters." He tapped the folder. "They were very clear." My mother's late-night questions suddenly made sense. "They believed," Mr. Harris continued, "that one of you was being pressured, rushed, possibly misled." Mark's face went pale. "This is ridiculous." "There's more," the lawyer said. And that was when I knew whatever came next was the reason my parents had looked at Mark the way they did near the end. Because they hadn't just planned for their deaths, they had planned for betrayal. Mark didn't sit back down. He stood there, hands pressed flat against the edge of the table, breathing through his nose like he was trying to keep something from spilling out. Anger, fear, or maybe both. "This is being taken out of context," he said. "My parents trusted me. I handled everything. Bills, doctors, paperwork. They needed me." Mr. Harris didn't argue. He didn't raise his voice. He simply opened another section of the folder and slid a single page across the table, toward me. "This letter was addressed to you," he said. "Your parents instructed me to give it to you only if the house became a point of conflict." My hands hesitated before picking it up. My mother's handwriting covered the page. Careful, familiar, the kind she used for birthday cards and grocery lists. My chest tightened. I read silently at first, then out loud, because Mark demanded to hear it. "If you are reading this, it means something we feared has already happened." Mark scoffed. "Fear of what?" I kept reading. "We love both of our children, but love does not mean blindness." The words landed heavy. "Over the past year, we noticed changes, pressure around money, urgency we did not create, decisions being rushed. We were advised, quietly, to sign documents we did not fully understand." Mr. Harris cleared his throat. "Your parents consulted a second attorney without informing either of you." Mark's eyes widened. "You went behind my back?" "They went behind both of your backs," Mr. Harris corrected, "intentionally." The room felt smaller, like the walls had leaned in to listen. "There's also this," the lawyer continued, pulling out a thin folder with a red tab. "An audit." I didn't know what that meant, but Mark did. I saw it in the way his jaw tightened. "This audit documents withdrawals made from your parents' joint account over the last 18 months, Mr. Harris said. Large ones, some of which were not disclosed. "That money was for expenses," Mark snapped. "Care, repairs." "Some were," Mr. Harris agreed. "Some were not." He read the amounts, numbers that made my stomach turn. Mark's voice dropped. "You're implying theft." "I'm stating facts," the lawyer said calmly, "and your parents were concerned enough to document them." The silence that followed was heavy and sharp. "That's why the house couldn't be sold," Mr. Harris went on, "why access was restricted, why one of you was given immediate protection." Protection. That word echoed. "They didn't trust me," Mark whispered. "No, they didn't trust what you were becoming." Mark turned on me then. "You think you're innocent? You think you deserve that house more than me?" "I think," I replied, my voice shaking but steady, "that they saw something coming and tried to stop it." Mr. Harris closed the folder. "The will stands. The house is yours to live in. Mark, you are prohibited from interfering." "And if I don't agree?" Mark asked. The lawyer met his gaze. "Then we proceed to the next step." "What step?" Mark demanded. Mr. Harris paused. "Probate court, and potentially criminal review." Mark laughed, but there was no humor in it, just panic wrapped in sound. As we left the office, Mark brushed past me without a word. But as the door closed behind him, I noticed something else. The red-tabbed folder wasn't empty. There were still documents inside, and whatever they contained, my parents had saved them for last. I went back to the house the same evening, not because I felt ready, but because the lawyer said I should. He said timing mattered, that the house wasn't just a place anymore. It was evidence. The locksmith arrived before sunset, a quiet man with tired eyes who didn't ask questions. He changed the locks while I stood on the porch, the same porch Mark had forced me off days earlier. When the door finally opened, the smell hit me first. Dust, lemon cleaner, memory. Nothing had moved, but everything felt disturbed, like someone had been careful not to look guilty. I walked room by room, the living room, the kitchen, my parents' bedroom. Their bed was made too neatly, corners sharp. My brother had always been terrible at that. Something was off. In the study, the desk drawers were empty, too empty. The pen's gone, the notepad missing, even the paperweight my father loved was gone. I stood very still. Mark hadn't just kicked me out. He'd searched. I called Mr. Harris. "He removed items from the house," I said. "I suspected he might," the lawyer replied. "Did he take electronics?" I looked around. The desktop computer was gone. The external hard drive, too. "Yes." Mr. Harris exhaled slowly. "Then we move faster." Before I could ask what that meant, headlights flashed through the front windows. Mark's car. My pulse spiked. I stepped back from the window as he pulled into the driveway, like he still belonged there. He didn't knock. He tried his old key. It didn't work. I watched his face change, from irritation to confusion to something darker. I opened the door before he could knock. "You can't be here," he said immediately. "I live here, according to the will." He laughed. "You think this is over?" "I think you took things that weren't yours," I said. Mark stepped closer. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Then why did you take the computer?" For the first time, he didn't answer right away. "They were sick," he finally said. "They didn't understand the paperwork. I was fixing things." "By emptying their account?" I asked. His eyes hardened. "They told me to handle it." I shook my head. "They told someone else to watch you." Mark's phone buzzed. He checked it, then cursed under his breath. "They're freezing my accounts," he muttered. That was the moment I knew. The audit hadn't just scared him, it had exposed him. "You set this up," he said, pointing at me. "You turned them against me. I wasn't there. You were." He stepped back, suddenly calculating. "You think they left you everything? No, I think they left the truth." Mark leaned in close. "You don't understand how deep this goes." Before I could respond, his phone buzzed again. He read the message, his face draining of color. "They found it," he whispered. "Found what?" I asked. He looked at me then, not angry, afraid. "The second copy," he said. "I thought I destroyed it." My stomach dropped. "What second copy?" Mark backed toward the door. "You should leave this alone." The door closed behind him. But he was wrong, because whatever my parents had hidden, whatever my brother had tried to erase, it was about to surface. And this time, there would be no locks left to change. The call came the next morning, not from Mark, not from the lawyer, from the bank. "Ms. the woman said carefully, "We need you to come in today. There are documents tied to your parents' estate that require your immediate signature." I already knew what this was about, the second copy. When I arrived, Mr. Harris was waiting in a private office. So was a woman I'd never seen before. Mid-40s, sharp eyes, calm posture. She introduced herself as a forensic accountant. "We found the second copy your parents mentioned," she said. "It wasn't destroyed. It was hidden." Hidden where, I wondered. But the answer didn't matter anymore. What mattered was what it proved. Mr. Harris slid the folder across the table, the red tab again. This time, it felt heavier. "Your parents documented everything," he said. "Dates, transfers, signed instructions that were altered after the fact." My chest tightened as I flipped through the pages. Mark had moved money into accounts under his control, slowly, carefully, just enough at a time to avoid attention. He'd used medical expenses as cover, repairs, insurance. But my parents noticed. They didn't confront him, the accountant said. They were afraid of what he might do if he felt cornered. That hurt more than I expected. "They created safeguards instead," Mr. Harris continued. "They changed the will, restricted the house, and left instructions that if Mark interfered, this file would be released." I thought of the locks, the computer, the panic in his eyes. "They also left this," the lawyer said. He handed me a sealed envelope. Inside was a handwritten note, short, direct. "We are sorry we did not stop this sooner. We are trusting you to finish what we could not. Protect the truth. Protect yourself." I closed my eyes. By the end of the day, Mark's access to everything was frozen. The house, the accounts, his authority as executor revoked. The criminal investigation moved quietly but fast. When Mark finally called me, his voice was different, smaller. "They're charging me," he said. "If you testify, it'll be over for me." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. "I already did," I replied. There was a long silence. "I never meant for it to go this far," he whispered. "I know. That's why it did." The house stayed mine. Not forever, just long enough. Long enough to heal. Long enough to sort through boxes and letters and memories my brother never saw. I found things he missed. Notes tucked inside books. Receipts taped to photo albums. Proof my parents had loved us both, but trusted me to see the truth. Months later, I sold the house. Not because I had to, because I was ready. At closing, the buyer asked if I had any last words for the place. I did. "Thank you," I said quietly, "for shelter, for warning, for proof that love sometimes prepares you for betrayal so you can survive it." Mark lost the house he tried to steal, but I gained something else, the truth my parents left behind, and that was worth more than any inheritance.